responsibility is like this, the final piece of it is ability. So it's a skill. Like you actually can train it and build it. And you guys are tough, man. You guys are tough.
Amateurs here.
This is not rookie level. This is D1 SU. I didn't realize.
Will just dropped about 50,000 knowledge truth bombs.
Absolutely. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to What Doesn't Appear on the Stat Sheet Pod. I'm here once again with John. John, another special guest.
Another special one. Hey, we got with us Will Ferris. Let me give you a little background on Will. So, I've been really close to Will over the years, and he's helped many facets of my game, my mental side, my on the court as well. But Will's worked over 400 hours of formal mental coaching over the years. That's a lot of work there. He's now recently the FIBA 3-on-3 basketball coach for the top team, mental empowerment coach for 4 years plus, Bainbridge head coach for 2 years, podcast host, which we're doing right now, mental skills program director, personal trainer. I mean, we can go on and on. I even got here, Harvey, farm hand at wait a minute. Farm hand at Equilibrium Organic Farm. We'll get into that later in the pod. But Azusa Pacific 2-time team captain in all-conference senior year. I mean, this guy's done everything.
He's
done everything.
And I just the first question here is like, what made you love the game of basketball? What got you introduced to the game, and just brought you your joy and your love for the game?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think honestly, it's something I've thought a lot about. Yeah. I think basketball and sports in general now has so much external rewards.
Yeah. So
like there's money involved at young ages, which I think is great. I think it's awesome that people can be incentivized by external things. But the thing for me that I think was unique and that I'm so grateful for was that I fell in love with the game organically. Like, I loved playing basketball. I loved like the feeling of being outside. Like, I loved like getting lost in my head, creating up games. Like, vividly remember being the Seattle Sonics versus the Miami Heat. I would score 100 points for both teams, and then I would hit the game winner for the other. And it was just like whoever won that day was the game winner.
Yeah.
And from fourth grade, I think I was creating teams at recess, and I think like being here in the Pacific Northwest, like being outside in the trees, like the air, running around, like that's what I fell in love with.
Yes.
And I think like that mental clarity, the freedom of movement, like seeing the ball go through the net, that's what I fell in love with. And so like I think one of the biggest pieces of sports psychology is intrinsic motivation, like being able to do something because you love doing it, not because of what you get from it.
Right.
And so I think, a lot of kids, they're put into these sports, right? Like, and their parents might have some expectation of what they need to get from it or what they need to create from it. And I think what my parents did a great job is like, hey, they didn't really put that pressure on me. I mean, my mom was like, you could go D3. I'm like, go D3? I'm trying to go D1. And, but I, like deep down in my heart, I never lost that joy. I never lost that freedom. And, like speaking of love for the game, like when I got to college and the external side started to get bigger and I started to put more pressure on myself, I remember I had this huge reset when I transferred where I was running on the beach out in Santa Barbara with my buddy, and I was like pretending like I was like juking people on a football field, and I was like, wait a second, like I love this. And I was like, that's what I loved about basketball.
Right.
And I need to find that again. I need to like create that again. And that kind of started my whole mental journey. On like wanting to help people find that again, connect to that again, and because like I saw the value of that.
Yeah.
So like basketball, like the origin story was pure love, and I think even to this day, like there's just something about basketball. I was telling someone like, you know how they say there's like gateway drugs?
Yeah.
Like basketball is the final drug, you know, like, and it's like hard to like, do I want to play pickleball right now? Like, no, I want to hoop. Do I want to play soccer? Do I want to play baseball? No judgment on those sports. It's just like, for me, there's something about basketball that is like so much instant feedback, so much joy.
Yeah.
You're playing with a team, but there's creativity. You can get buckets on someone. So there's a lot of like great elements of basketball. So love is the core of it for sure.
You kind of touched on it a little bit. I wanted to talk about, it seems like you have an equal love for the mental health and mental wellness. How did what led you to that, and what led you to the intersection, bringing it across to sports psychology, sports wellness?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think the mental side for me, I think obviously like you get interested in things, I think because, I mean, you resonate to it, but I also struggled, I think, mentally. Like I could notice myself perform less than what I was training. I could have one person be like, "You're the best shooter I've ever seen," and I would go in the game and I'd miss one and I'd be like, "I should shoot again," or I'd make up stories in my head. And you know, I got immersed with some cool mentors that like sort of like lobbed ideas at a young age that were like, you know, what's the difference between time and being, you know, now? And I'm like, what? Like these concepts that are like forcing you to be open to other perspectives. And I think that openness, you know, my name is Will, and Will, like, I think my natural birthright is like, I'm willing to kind of push through everything. I'm willing to kind of push and grind. But like, I also think there's that equal perspective of being willing and being open. And I think I oftentimes was very open to these ideas, but maybe not willing to apply it. And I think the mental gap that I saw was there was a ton of people out there giving information, but not really teaching the empowerment side to make those choices, to be responsible for them. And so how I've come across mental empowerment is through my studies of Chinese medicine, Taoism, Western psychology, and I feel like I have blended it all to this like organic, like every person is their own unique entity.
Right.
This isn't like we're not reading a book and being like, hey, everybody fits this box.
Right.
And I think that like there's like a game in there for me. Like when I'm working one-on-one with someone, it's like I'm trying to figure out what his temperament is, what his narrative is in his head. I'm not trying to tell him what to do or what to think. And that's like playing a game. You're letting the game come to you. And I think, you know, at the core of all this, like information's great, but if you don't realize that you've chosen your life and you choose your life every second of the day, really, like, what does it matter? So, like, when you say the intersection of sport, it's the same thing as a coach in that. Like, you could teach all the skills you want in a drill, but if you can't teach that person to decide when to use it, it's pretty much worthless. So, so that's the intersection of sport, I think.
Yeah. No, I would just say, just from my experience working with, you know, yourself, I've learned a lot, and I've taken a lot away from it. I think the two things that I kind of wanted to touch on here was, you know, this notion of responsibility and then knowing your truth, and how to find that within. Can you go a little deeper on those two, and what do those mean to the viewers?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a million arguments you can make of truth. I don't think we can dive into that today. But you know, one of my mentors said, like, your truth in any given moment is what you're willing to be responsible for. So if I'm willing to be responsible for my emotions and my thoughts, that's my truth in that moment. I think truth, you know, again, like, I think that's a topic. It could, some people say it's relative to the individual. Some people say it's objective. Like, there is an objective truth. You know, you can go down that rabbit hole, but to me, responsibility is the core of all this, because you know, what you're not willing to be responsible for, you can't change. And so responsibility is like this, you know, the final piece of it is ability. So it's a skill. Like, it's, you actually can train it and build it. And in my opinion, like, when you go through anything in life, you have a choice, and it's that choice that I think is where we can all take the mirror of our life. Like, I like to look at it, I call it radical responsibility. I don't look at it like everything's random, this thing's happening to me, you know, it's this person's fault, I'm blaming them. I think what I've been really good at is taking this perspective of, even if you do the worst thing to me possible, what did I need from this, and what did I choose from this? And almost like this, practicing acceptance, practicing forgiveness, like, hey, what qualities do I see in myself from this guy who's doing this bad thing to me? What do I see in that? What can I pull from that? What type of grace can I offer him? And it's taking like, okay, this person can't do anything to me, but he can trigger something in me.
Ooh.
And like and whatever's in me is mine. That's my responsibility. But I think our gut reaction to things in life, notice reaction is a repeated action, and you're just doing it unconsciously, is to defend ourselves, blame other people, I'm the victim, et cetera, et cetera. You can't change anything from that. Like, you're now defending yourself from life. And I think ultimately the tools that I've studied are, how do I get somebody to take that defensiveness, that blame, that guilt, that shame, and take it to a higher quality emotion or thought pattern, or in essence get to their truth, which is you're responsible for your life.
Yeah.
Which at the core of everything, I think, is if you don't believe that, or you can't access, or you don't have the willingness to access that quite yet, then most of life is reactive. And that's kind of, there's no, like, the last thing I'll say on that is reactivity is something that's already known. It's happening. It's already happened. Whereas responsibility is taking what has happened, and it's, you don't deal with any of this. You just move forward. You're taking what you've created and creating something new. And I think there's like many tools to get to that point. But, responsibility, I think, is like the core of the work that I do.
Right.
Actually, I want to commend you for the work that you do, because this is really important work, and
Thanks,
a lot more attention, it feels like nowadays, is being put on mental wellness and mental health.
For sure.
And I wanted to ask you this. It's actually something we touched on the mic in our interview with Michael Knight.
With Mike.
The intersection between sports and life in general, and how a lot of the lessons you're talking about right now are from sport, but can be applied to your greater life. Could you touch on what the intersection is and how you can learn so much, and also the importance of having sport at a young age and learning these lessons?
You guys are tough, man. You guys are tough.
Amateurs here.
This is not rookie level. This is D1 SU. I didn't realize. I think everyone says sports brings like a lot of lessons, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think we really like live it oftentimes. I think we parents will put their kids in because they want the lessons from sport, right? Like they want to like learn, they want their kid to grow and problem solve and, be social and work on a team and all that. But like parents have their own egos and their own identities and their own defensiveness, and they jump in. And what do they do when that lesson's ready to be learned? It's their fault. It goes back to responsibility. So I think, having now been a high school coach, coached pros, coached really young level, I've always been really intentional about, reminding myself, like one example is, I told you guys I fell in love with basketball in 5th grade.
That's right.
My first coaching gig was a 5th grade basketball team. And I just got like kind of bamboozled into coaching it, right? And before every game, I touched my heart, I meditated, and I said, let me coach and lead these kids to the same love that I felt, the same type of love that I had for basketball in 5th grade. And like, remember that, like feed that, like focus on that, because that's what matters. And I think at the end of the day, I think this goes into like a bigger question of like, why are we here on earth and what are we here to do? I think sport is like one of the last real things left. We can do a lot of stuff on ChatGPT and robotic, Sports is real, man. You can't fake it. You're out there. You can't, there's nobody that can protect you out there.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of lessons that you can learn. And I think basketball or not basketball, but just sports in general, those responsibilities I talked about, I think those are the first things to get hit. Because when you're in high school or you're in college, what's the thing you care about the most? You care about that sport. You care about that team. You go to class for history, and again, I'm sure there's a ton of people that care, but more people are in attendance for your basketball game than the history class you're taking. And that test you take, nobody's watching you.
Yeah.
We sold out a basketball gym on the island. They care about the sport, and so there's like this big attention we put on sports. So I think at an early age, it's that access point that you really care about. And when you care about something, you're willing to risk parts of your identity to do it, because there's risk of failure, there's risk of success. So I think sports has this beautiful pathway to teach you these things if you're intentional about it. And I mean, I would say probably in my first 2 years coaching high school, I probably sacrificed some losses to keep those values intact. And I sacrificed my time and sacrificed, a lot of my own personal energy to make sure that was happening, because I think at the end of the day, when kids look back, I think the greatest win is going to be in 20 years when they're like, hey, you helped me through this and you helped me take responsibility. I can't even remember, half of the games I've coached now, and it's 2 years later.
Yeah.
And I think that's true for everybody, right? In the moment, it really matters, but it's like, at the end of the day, I want anyone I work with or my players to look back and be like, damn, that guy really did care about more than just this sport.
Right.
And I think that's like kind of in essence what we're all here to walk each other to, whether it's sports or this interview or the girl that walked by without the ID out there. Like, I think we're all kind of walking each other through to this like higher consciousness and responsibility.
Right. One thing I want to touch on here is just, we have a lot of distractions, nowadays with social media, with this like, it's all about me kind of culture. How important is it to be selfless when you're playing the game of basketball? How important is it with your teammates? How important with your life, to care about others? Like, can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yeah, again, great question, because it ties into when you have values, that's kind of like where you want to go.
Yeah.
And there's all these distractions and pathways that take us off course. And I was thinking about this the other day where we can easily look at the distractions of our phones or things like that. But they say, energy follows attention, right?
Yeah.
When energy follows attention, like matter, like if I start clapping, everybody's attention's going right there.
Right there.
Right? If I throw this coffee cup, everyone's going to look over there. The thing that we don't realize is that when I'm focusing on like these patterns that I help people work through, right? Those are internal distractions.
Right.
And what happens is like those become so big that our focus follows our energy now at that point. We're so unconscious to it. We're so distracted internally. We don't even have the consciousness to focus our energy. Does that make sense? Like, so like when you really look at it that way, I think taking the power back is first not like caking on affirmations or confidence or this.
Right.
It's first going, how do I unwind this energy that has my focus so that I can refocus on what matters?
Right.
And so you talked about being selfless, right? There's all these qualities that I value. This is why.
Selfless, not selfish.
Yeah, selfless.
Okay,
Yeah. When I was in college, I had all these, I wanted to get back to intrinsic motivation. I wanted to be a great teammate. But I had all these patterns of like, people asking me, how many points did you score this game? What did you do? And so like my focus was like, okay, people care about stats. Your guys' podcast, beyond the stat sheet, right? First thing people are going to look at is the stat sheet. So all the energy is down here on the stat sheet. And like what I realized at a young age, I remember going to a Gonzaga basketball game. I'm looking around. I'm like, everybody's here to watch these dudes? Who matters in this world? I'm like, those dudes. I want to be those dudes. And so like we have these beliefs that we pick up and they become so energetically charged that we have to learn to forgive ourselves because it takes time to unwind. And I think where I was hard on myself was I read these books. I was like, yeah, I want to be that type of teammate. I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. But the energy that I had trained myself to focus on was so ingrained that it's hard to live by those qualities. And I think as we get more vulnerable and we have people around us that support us, it gets easier. But I think to become selfless, you have to truly value joy and freedom above all else. And so I texted you this yesterday. Before you heal someone, ask them if they're willing to give up what made them sick, right? I just stepped down from my high school coaching job. It's hard.
Yeah.
I'm not going to shy away from that. It's hard. I've put in a ton of time. It's hard to let go. It's hard to see something that you put so much time in. And so why I bring that up is because if I can analytically say, yeah, I'm going to let that go. I'm going to let that go. But then in my heart, I'm like, do I truly want to let this go to let something greater come in? Do I truly want to let this go? Am I willing to let this go? And I think, you could take a person who's getting throat cancer because they're smoking cigs, right? Like, before we treat you, like, are you willing to let go of smoking cigarettes? And most people are like, no, I want all the benefits without having to give up my habits. And I think it's that willingness that is more scary for people than we realize, is letting go, because then you have to, what is your identity? Who are you? What are you really doing on this earth? So I think for me, in a lot of those patterns of selflessness, it's letting go of that identity of, I'm not a basketball player. I'm not just my points that I score. I'm not this. And then it's like, well, who am I? And then so it's like almost safer to stay in that identity than to let go and be free. So do I value freedom or this like box that I created about myself? And I think that's in essence, the question we all have to ask ourselves. Are we willing to let go of what is making us sick, in essence?
I wanted to touch on sports performance also, and getting the best out of what you can possibly be on the court, field, whatever. We mentioned you had your former podcast host. Yeah. Flow Station podcast. And I read that you said you always had a fascination with the flow state.
Yeah.
And this is a term that I first learned or heard from Novak Djokovic. I'm a big tennis guy.
Okay.
And he talked about the flow state and how he locks in. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know you're a fan too. When he locks in when it matters most. Talk about the flow state and how to achieve it and what that is in general.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many qualities of the flow state, right? I think the one that we overlook oftentimes is surrender. So letting go, like in essence, like, are you willing to let go of the attachment to the outcome of this? Are you willing to let go of what happens if you fail? I think that's what gets most people. It's like you get to that final flow cycle, and it's like, but you have to trust, you have to be present. And the reason why presence is one of the key qualities of flow. To be present means you're in the unknown. And I think that's why people don't want to be there. If I can predict the future or live in the past, instead of just being present and willing to feel what I'm feeling and go what I'm going through, I'd rather control and fix and fight, right? So I think for me, the flow state originally was this like one size fits all, like this is what it looks like, this is what you have to do. And I read the flow book like 600 times, like, and just studying it, and I know the qualities. But I think everybody has different temperament. So like basically each temperament has a different way of processing information. So like the story that we tell ourselves in our head, how we narrate it. Some people are very like, things need to be A to B to C. Some people are very like, things are like, I like the freedom, I like the flow. Some people are very like, I need things to be very visual and sensory. I need to feel it. Some people are not at all. Like, and so I think when I work with someone talking about flow, I think everyone has their own flow. And I think everyone has qualities of how they access it that might take them away from flow to where you can anchor it back to something else. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, I think the flow state is unique to each individual. Like my flow state, oftentimes, like I like to have more of like a structure. Sometimes my flow is, if I don't have enough structure to my flow, it takes me out of flow. Sometimes if I'm overly structured, like if things have to be this way, now I can't access flow because I'm judging it. Right? So, but I know that about myself. I know that narrative style, and I know how to access the other narratives. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I think ultimately a lot of it goes down to when are you willing to surrender to the experience itself? And when you're willing to surrender to the experience itself without that chatter in your head, that's flow.
Yeah. And I think the cool thing with the flow is like, you're not thinking. You're not thinking. You're just doing.
Yeah.
And I've been in the flow state. When I'm playing the game, and I felt those like peak moments, and boy, man, like the greatest thing about it, dude, like you feel an immense amount of joy. You feel an immense amount of surrender. Like you feel just this love for the game and this passion for the game, and that flow state. I'm just so grateful when you hit those moments in your life, and I want to continue and obviously everybody in this room wants to continue with that. I wanted to segue into, this USA basketball 3-on-3 position. You've coached at Bainbridge, you've coached at the 5th grade league, you've coached over the years. What does this next step mean to you, and how did it come about?
Yeah, it's interesting now. Like in hindsight, now I've coached as young as 5th grade all the way up to professional now, and it means a lot. I think 3x3. I was telling someone like my greatest basketball experience was always Hoop Fest. Like I love 3-on-3, and I started playing 3x3, which is more of like an international competition.
Right.
Like FIBA kind of owns it, and they're kind of running tournaments out there. Mm-hmm. And so US is just behind on it a little bit. Mm-hmm. We're starting to catch up. I think we're going to take over here soon. But I played on the World Tour in 2022. I, trained with the World Cup teams, Olympic teams, like just trying to prep them for their events. And I love the sport. I think I've studied a lot of like different skill acquisition tactics for basketball. I think 3x3 is the greatest skill acquisition thing for young athletes and professional college athletes, because it increases the decision-making time. It increases, the touches you get on the ball, how to screen, how to move, how to play defense. You're on an island. So I think ultimately that enticed me with it. And I think my openness, right, like I had to be open to leave Bainbridge, and then 2 days later I get called from Jimmer and Jay, the leaders of 3x3, like, hey, like we might want you to kind of help coach with the top team. I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. Then I go to Arizona last week, and we're running a developmental camp, and I'm working with the 2 top teams again. And then they called me and said, hey, we want you to lead the World Cup team. And I'm like, wow, like, honored, right? Like, just like it's a cool experience, and like it's surreal to be a part of it. And I think very humbling too, right? Like when you're coaching people that you're better than or you're older than, it's a little bit easier to have control or whatever. These guys are older than me. They're better basketball players. They have more experience in it. And it's like, now I'm coming in as a role. And again, like I said, the mirror, okay, what's coming up in me? What am I reacting to? What do I need to be? And so it took me 3-4 days to be myself. I was like, hey, I'm going to throw little things. And I was kind of hesitant. And then there was like the final day of film where I finally just grabbed my chair, turned it around, smacked it down. And I was like, you know what? We're going to talk about joy. They're like, what? So it's like, awesome. I think ultimately, it just takes time. It takes time. And like I said, I think this, like what I keep realizing, like when you keep your heart open to opportunities, like, am I deserving of this role? Did I earn it? Like, it's like, you can go down all these stories, but it's like, well, I'm in the role. So you might as well be open that you earned it, and we'll see how it goes. Like I think this summer I'm working with them, and then for the future, if it goes well, I think I'll stick with it.
Continue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to talk about 3-on-3 in general. A lot of people first really heard of this, I feel like, during the Olympics this past summer, and there was a lot of comments of, I didn't even know this was a thing on the Olympic stage. So talk about how you obviously have a love for it. Talk about why you should tune in and what really makes 3-on-3 worth watching, and the beauty of it.
Yeah, I think it's cool because it's for our generation that the attention span's kind of low. Every point feels like game point. Mm-hmm. It's like such a quick game to 21.
So just to back up, what are the games to 21?
Yeah.
Is there a second count? Is there like a shot clock? Are they ones and twos? How do they score?
Yeah. So it's different. So like the Ice Cube League, I think is just terrible. Watching it because it's so slow. They check ball. Like this is 2s and 1s to 21, 10-minute game, 12-second shot clock. So you're moving, and if you make a shot, you're taken out of the net, and you're clearing it. It's live, so you're not checking up unless it's a dead ball. And I think that or a foul, right? And I think why people should tune in is like once you start to like understand the sport, how quick these games go, it's some of the most exciting things ever. And like the way that they set it up in Europe and like these other countries, some of it is their national sport. Mm-hmm. Like Mongolia, it's their national sport. Other countries like Japan, I think it's like the most beloved form of basketball. Mm-hmm. So these countries will pay a bunch of money for these athletes that maybe weren't good enough to play 5-on-5, pro, but they're way better at 3x3 and they're getting paid more, right? And so it's interesting. And they'll, like, the coolest part is it's a half court, but they'll like put it in a mall, or they'll put it in like the center of the city, or they'll put it in like these cool areas where they'll pack out 2,000, 3,000 people. And it's like the environment. Like I played in one game, a couple games in the world, or the world tour that weren't, we didn't have a ton of fans, but the anxiety and like the butterflies you get, because it's so, everything is so fast and so like urgent that it feels like you're like, it's almost like gambling almost. Like you're rolling the dice out there.
Boom, boom.
And it's like so volatile, right? Like you could be the best team ever on paper and lose a game. And that's just how it goes. You could also be like a bunch of NBA dudes that have never played and lose to guys like me, right? Like, and we've played G League guys and just beat them, and it's like, well, they're on paper way better, but the style of play is so team oriented. You have to understand the concepts, the movements. So I think for me, it's just like a totally new brand of basketball. And I think my passion is I kind of want to take over like lower level AAU and provide this for youth. Cause I think some of these kids playing 5-on-5 and not touching a ball, or their whole weekend spent playing 2 minutes in a zone defense. Like, we got to teach basketball. And I think this is like the best bridge. So I'm not only passionate about it on like the professional level, but like for the youth, I think is going to be really cool.
Huge. You know, you talk about Jimmer. Just briefly, obviously he's now I think it was like the head of the program, the 3-on-3 program in the U.S. Talk about like things you've learned, maybe learn from him by playing him, by being around him. Just some things you've taken away.
Yeah, I actually asked him, like, we're the exact same size.
Okay.
And I just go straight up. I'm like, why are you so much better than me? Very vulnerable question.
Yeah.
And he didn't, like, you know, he's very humble about it. But, like, you know, obviously, I think his development early on, how he played, you know, trained, and, like, his coaching earlier on was a lot different than what I probably had. And I didn't mean that in a comparative way. It was more of, like, I'm curious, like, how did you get to this mental capacity? And he's like, Jimmer has this, like, mental switch, you can tell, where it's just, like, he doesn't believe anybody's better scorer, shooter. It's my ball, I'm taking it, I'm shooting it, we're winning. And so being around him, I think that's really inspiring. But it's also, like, off the court, one of the nicest dudes you've ever met, very open, doesn't lead by big time in everyone. I've done this. Just amazing leader in that front of, like, you know, trusting me with the team and, like, giving me the freedom to add things and offer feedback and staying open to that. So I think just my main takeaway is, like, USA basketball is getting the right people in place to, like, make this really, really cool. And I'm saying it here first, like, in 10 years, 3x3 is going to be one of the, I could see it maybe getting into schools, or like maybe as like a college, like, spring, you know, sport, something. I don't know how it will be immersed, but it'll be somewhat like beach volleyball, I think.
Yeah.
And I think people will get to the point where 3x3, just like these other countries, like, people might actually value it more, and they might want to watch it more, because it's got this feel, this energy that I think is hard to emulate in a 5-on. You know, obviously 5-on-5 is always going to be way better. Let's be real. Yeah. But I'm saying, like, if there's like another alternative or avenue, I think people are going to start to see it. And I think Jimmer at the head is, like, huge, because he can bring in guys that know him, that are way better athletes, that are great players. That I already saw it. Like, our developmental camp was insane intensity. Like, great players, great talent, but guys learning the sport and buying in. And they're like, yeah, I want to do this. I'm like, USA's common, man. And I think that's what's really cool to be a part of it, is to see the growth already. Because I've been there since the jump. Like, really, like, our training camps back in 2020, 2021 were not anywhere near what they are now. And I can only anticipate it's going to get better and better. Yeah.
Talk about the differences between coaching 5-on-5 and 3v3. What are the, from a coach standpoint, X's and O's, what are the differences between them? What makes 3-on-3 unique? Yeah,
that's a great question too. Is like 3-on-3, right? You can't hide. So a lot of the ball screen coverages, there's no help side, so you have to really be locked in. it's 12-second shot clock, so you have to get to these like double actions and moves, and like they allow a lot more fouling. So like the hand checking, I've watched some of your guys practice, like none of that. Like they would foul the crap out of you guys. They're holding the whole time, so you have to be so dialed in on your movements.
Right.
So that's one thing, is like the attention to details and like your principles have to be really locked in. Whereas 5-on-5, you can get 2 guys in space and play a 2-man game and probably win a game.
Yeah.
3-on-3 is like you need everyone. You have to have everyone locked in. One of the coolest rules, which I think should be applied to parents in high school, but also like just as an awareness piece, like coaching from my studies and background should be very like you detach control and give responsibility to the people that are doing whatever they're doing. 5-on-5, you can manipulate games. You can control games a lot. Like, especially in high school, you can play a gimmick defense, or you can add a couple quick hitters. You can manufacture points. Whereas 3x3, coaches can't be on the court. So when I'm at the World Cup, I will not be sitting with the team. I will be up in the stands. If they acknowledge me, if I say like, hey, run, floppy, they acknowledge me, technical foul. So it's like tennis.
Yeah, I was
it's like tennis. So and I love that. And so like, because I'm like, that is what true coaching is. You're detached, dude. You're gone. You've done the prep. Let them hoop. Let them hoop. And I think that's awesome. I think that's amazing, and that's why it's such a cool tool for kids to learn. So when I created my league, I created a league on Bainbridge last year. We had probably 80 kids, and I gave one rule to the parents. You coach, you get kicked out of the gym. No parents said anything. Kids had fun. They were learning. They were like learning through play. They were having so much fun. And like, I was just like, man, this is what basketball is. This is why it's played. Like, this is it.
This is joy. This is
it. And it's pickup. That's what pickup is like. There's no
exactly.
Coach. It's like, yeah, exactly what you're saying.
And I think that's what people crave. And I think coaches, like, they're doing the best they can, and they want to feel valued as well. So I think it's expanding where I feel valued in my life. Like, right. So if I'm working with pros that know the game, and I might have I have to be intentional. Like, if I have one little impact I can make, it might be like highlighting one great thing they did. That's my coaching for the day. Mm-hmm. Are you okay with that? Right. Like, I always ask coaches, like, if the boat is, sailing well, do you still feel valued? Or are you only valued when you're fixing and controlling and solving and getting on people? It's like, where are you valued inside of your coaching? Because at the end of the day, I want the boat to flow. I don't need to be a voice. If the boat's flowing, let it flow. Mm-hmm. Right? I think 3x3 is that. It literally is that. Like, dude, your game's on. Mm-hmm. You're gone. So
you had to be in pretty good condition too, right, for a 3-on-3 game?
Yeah, it's the hardest condition. I mean, it's not even close. 5-on-5 is way easier.
Are there any substitutes, or is it?
You have one sub.
I think you have one, right?
And they usually sub every dead ball, like just kind of in a rotation. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there's nothing comparable. Like the fatigue you have in those, because it's so physical.
Right.
So I started training when I was playing. I was training boxing and jiu-jitsu, trying to like have cardio with physicality. Mm-hmm. I'll never forget my first game. We played at the national tournament, and we had been playing regular USA basketball, like free flowing, real defense. I get in my first game, I get body checked out of bounds. Ref goes. Then we went to Puerto Rico. We're playing one of the best teams in the world. I'm like guarding a flare screen. Guy just boom. No, I might be coming off a flare screen. Guy hits me to the floor. I look up to the ref. He goes, "Get up."
Get up.
And it's just like, that's the style of basketball. So it's like, you can be in great cardio shape, but imagine that, but getting hit over and over and over and over and over and over and over. People are posting you up. There's no fouls really. So you're getting hand checks and you're trying to get to your bag, but it's like, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't. So it's a way different shape, I think.
Yeah. And what would you say with your playing career, were you big on like putting in just a ton of time, like putting up reps, like, or were you like, how was your training? Like, what do you focus on when you do train? Because all these athletes, they go to the gym and they do 1,000 dribble moves and they think it just applies to the game, right? What kind of separates those people that make it at a high level from those who don't when it comes to their training?
Yeah, I think it's Consistency, I think, like from 5th grade, I mean, this isn't positive. Like I'm glad I'm more conscious now, but I had this like belief in my head that if I missed a day shooting, I would lose my shot. Like I wouldn't have my jumper anymore. Like I wouldn't
Hey
be,
man, I've been there.
I wouldn't like be like worthy of making a shot in the game. So I shot at least 100 makes a day from 5th grade up to high school.
Yeah, just every day.
And I think the cool part, like there's a 2-part to this. Like when we talked about responsibility earlier,
We did.
I didn't have a trainer growing up. I would go to maybe 1 training session a month. That was it. And one camp in the summer. I trained myself every single time I went to train, which built my responsibility, right? Like I was responsible for my journey. When I said I wanted to do something, I knew I would do it because I was my own coach. But what the thing that I wish I would have trained more was the constraint-led approach, which is like when you move in space, you're reading defenders, you're making decisions. Every shot's a decision. And I think when you create drills in a vacuum where you're just shooting a certain amount of shots, it's like, dude, in a game, it'll never be like that. You're never going to have this much control. So like Jimmer talked about this, like said the number 1 skill in 3x3, but I think in anything is adaptability. Like being able to be adaptable to your environment of like, again, the willingness to let go of how you think it needs to be. And I think the training that when you put the right constraints, so you talked about how they're throwing 2 defenders on you and you have 1 dribble. That's a constraint.
Yeah.
If you create realistic constraints, now you're acquiring skill within the context of the game. Whereas most people train in that vacuum of like, and it's like, I mean, yeah, you're probably getting somewhat better. You're still playing the game.
Sure.
But it's like, how often are you going to go in the game? So I think for me, it's like having that awareness brings so much more creativity to the coach, because it's like now you're like a scientist. You're not in control, but you're like a scientist that's going, I don't need to tell him what move. Like, how can I create a situation where he has to make a move? And then I'm like helping him in his actual skill, and then also taking away my ego of like, he made the move that I taught him. It's like, who cares, dude?
That's my move.
Yeah, it's his move. So it's like finding joy in that constraint training, I think brought the love of basketball back for me.
Really?
Because I was so rigid.
Right, you were like, oh, I'm getting to the gym, shooting 10 spot, 10-3.
Yes, and how often can you do that without driving yourself crazy?
Right.
You know?
And to talk about all this and what you're talking about when it comes to training and coaching it for 3-on-3 specifically, how the coaches were moved on court, it feels like there's a greater, or the emphasis is more on off the court, like you say, off the court and practice-wise. And it's, what is that did you have to find the balance between that? And do you have to be more efficient in your training style since you're not there on the court? What is that process with?
Yeah, I would say a lot of it is like, so the group that I'm working with is so experienced that like even my practice sessions, like they kind of know what they like and what they want to do. I think as we get closer to the World Cup, I'll be able to show them like some new things and creative things that I really like, or things that, because I'm trying to be a learner too, because they know a lot. So I'm watching their film and I'm seeing, all right, what, like this guy does this really well in this space. How can I create a drill to kind of bring that out with other decisions, right? So I think you have to be really intentional about what skills you're trying to build. You know, these guys are traveling to different time zones all the time. So it's like, you don't want to kill them in practice, but you also want to give them enough reps to like feel comfortable with the things you're doing. And then I think it's like, you know, again, like kind of my consciousness of like, how do I get to a point where I, as the coach, am embodying whatever I'm asking them to do, and then just letting it all flow from there. And I think 3x3 is like, again, the greatest example of that, where I can't project onto them. I have to be with them in the trenches a little bit to show them that I'm there and supporting them and willing to put in the work with them. So I think, you know, I haven't, like this is my first summer coaching 3x3, so it's a little bit different. Like, I mean, I next year if we did a podcast, I could probably tell you more, but I just love the whole idea of it, man. I love the concept of not being able to be on the court. Like, I love that because I'm like, it's forcing me to be a much better coach. Because I'm like, okay, if they're out there by themselves, what would I be happy that, what tools have I developed in them to problem solve by themselves?
Right.
Which is basketball.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, when they're on, obviously when they're on the court, when they're traveling, when they're doing all these things, right, there becomes maybe a little bit of, at times maybe some doubt and uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
How do athletes combat some of that doubt and uncertainty that may arise in play or in the season?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think a lot of it goes to, like, you are not your thoughts. So you don't have to identify. Like, it's okay to have these.
Yeah.
I think it's like acceptance of it, and I think reconceptualizing what doubt is, like we worked on with you, which is, this thing is not here to hurt me. And when you can experience it that way, you can trust it. Like, okay, I trust that I can be open to this. It's not here to tell me. It has no bearing on how well I'm going to play.
Right.
It's literally just a voice that's telling me, it's trying to protect me. Our mind's created for survival. So you should have doubt. Really, honestly, like, you go into an event that you care about, if you don't have thoughts of doubt, like, I'd probably be a little worried, right? Maybe you don't care that much, right? And then I think, again, it goes to, like, that temperament style of, like, I believe joy is the eclipse. That's what I call it. Is like joy, I don't even think it's a great analogy, but it's what I wrote, was like, when I'm focused on joy, it sort of like blocks out all this other garbage. And I'm just like, the joy is like my guiding path. And so, like, when I have doubts or worries or fears that arise, what would be the hardest to let go of? It's like questions I ask myself. What would be the hardest thing to let go of? What would be the hardest thing to accept? And what would be the, what's another one that I ask myself? How difficult would it be to open to a different voice right now?
Ooh.
So, like, if I'm in fear and doubt and I'm just meditating on it, and it's like, I have to solve this fear and doubt, how can I be more open to joy? How can I be more open to a different possibility?
To love.
And the coolest thing, so one of my favorite books is Radical Forgiveness. And this guy's name's Colin Tipping. I think he's passed now, but amazing book. And one of the things he wrote in the beginning, he goes, here are all the truths that I believe in and assumptions that I make about the mind. You don't have to believe it. You just have to be a little bit open. It's like in the Bible, like, you just need the faith of a mustard seed and things happen, right? And I think my shift is, I don't need full certainty. I don't need to, like, prove my doubts or all this. I need to just be a smidge open that maybe, just maybe, they're not true. And then things start to happen, right? And I think that's what confidence is. Like, that is what faith is. That is what, surrender is. All these things is just a mere openness, a willingness to be open. So I think with my doubts, my first thing is, I look at emotions as like things that are clearing the heart. Like they're passing through to kind of clear what has been going through your head. I first like to take a step back too, and it's like all the journaling work, all the reconceptualizing. I've realized that these doubts in my head are merely trying to get me to reconnect to who I really am. So if I have all these doubts, I'm probably believing something about myself or the world or what I'm doing that is not true. That is not true. I'm believing a lie. And so when it comes up, I'm thankful for it. I'm like, thank you for showing me. But you see what I'm saying? It takes an openness to be like, okay, do what you need to do, doubt. Do what you need to do, fear. Like, I'm open to letting you pass through. Whereas most people close, and now they move the energy. It has to go somewhere, so now it's clogged, and they're fighting themselves. So it's one, being open to, this has a purpose. It's not random. I don't need to fix it, solve it. There's not something wrong with me. Then the second piece would be, how can I stay open to the possibility that I want? And it's not even controlling it. It's just being open to it. Like joy, being open to joy. Okay, what would joy look like today? How can I be open to that? And I think that, again, going back, you don't need to believe me. Like, when I write my journal, sometimes I'm like, am I sure I can believe this? Like, if I told this to like a Western medicine doctor, they'd be like, oh, something's wrong with you. You have something wrong, right?
Yeah,
you need a pill,
yeah, exactly.
right? And that's their openness. Like, that's their assumption. Now, who do I believe in that scenario? Do I have to prove them wrong, or can I just be merely open to the possibility that I have a divine connection that's happening through me? That all of these things that, how people say all the truth is within, like what you have is already within. Maybe that's true. Maybe what I just wrote is something I can believe and trust. Maybe. And what if that's the case? what a joyful day it is that I have the answer already. Mm-hmm. And I just had to be open to it.
Yeah.
Where I run into problems is sometimes I get the answer, or I have a solution, or I have this, and it's like I hold on, or I doubt it, or I don't stay as open to it. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, because it's like, you know why? If I'm just open to this, look at all the stuff I have to let go of. Look at all the identities I have to let go of. And this is all that I know. So then when I let go of this, it's like my freedom rises, but my control of what I know and what I'm doing diminishes. Mm-hmm. It's like Shawshank Redemption. Have you guys seen that movie?
I have not.
You haven't?
I have not.
Oh my God, have you?
I don't know if I have.
Okay, I'll give you a quick synopsis. They're in a prison. It's an amazing movie, and the guy finally gets out after like 30 years in jail.
Yeah.
And he literally wants to commit a crime immediately to go back to jail because he doesn't know how to spend his time, his freedom.
He doesn't know what to do.
Doesn't know what to do. Right? And so I think ultimately, that's what we do with our patterns. We want to be free. We want to be free. We want to be free until you go, okay, freedom is like this infinite space of creativity.
Overwhelming.
It's overwhelming. What do I choose in that scenario? And then it goes, I'd rather stay in my fear. I'd rather be who I was.
Because it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. And our brain is wired for survival. Right. So it's like you have to get over that impulse, which is being a man. Being a human being is getting to the point where you're conscious of your impulses and you make decisions based on your values, not your emotions and thoughts and anxieties and all that shit.
Let's talk about a little bit more about the importance of maybe getting a little uncomfortable at times.
Yeah.
Like whether that's on the court and off the court. Like, is that important for people's growth in their lives? Like, is it important to get uncomfortable?
Think about willingness, right? Like, why are you a Division I basketball player?
Because I did the uncomfortable.
You were willing to do what?
Willing to put in the work, willing to put in the time, willing to be a Division I basketball player.
There you go. Right? How many people are unwilling, even though we have all the information in the world? I'm just unwilling to go, like, wake up and do that.
So many, right?
I think...
unfortunately?
Yeah, exactly. Like, when I was in high school, my hands are still messed up from it, but, like, sure. I would shoot outside. I would never go to a gym. So if it was snowing, raining, I would shoot outside. My hands would be bleeding, like...
blisters.
Just, like, always. And I was like, I just was willing to do it. I would wake up at 4 a.m. and go to a beach and do hill sprints. Like, I don't think what I was doing was right, but I was at least willing. I was showing that I was willing to do it. And I think this work, like, similar to you, and you're very open, like, you've been willing to be very vulnerable with me and do the work. And I don't know when it's the big epiphany and, like, when it's all going to come together, but I know it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like you've been willing and you've shown it time and time again. And so I think ultimately it's like, one thing that I've gotten to is a lot of grace. It's kind of like, please tell me you guys have watched The Matrix.
The Matrix, yeah.
No. I won't give another synopsis, but
you know what? It's funny.
And I like movies too. That's funny.
All right, there's two movies for you.
Wait a minute. It's so funny because we're actually in like a kind of like a movie theater type of studio.
Yeah, we're in a studio, and you guys never watch movies.
You need to rent the studio for yourself.
Yeah, put it on.
What's interesting is just like, I think everybody's doing the best they can with the capacity that they have to be uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And when you have that realization, you detach from what people are doing. It's not personal. It's what they're capable of doing. I think you see that you can give grace to yourself and you can give grace to others that, you know, they're making choices and all choices are valid. Mm-hmm. Because who am I to judge that when somebody makes a choice, that wasn't the turmoil they needed in their life to make the biggest change of their life. Mm-hmm. Who am I to say that? So when I'm working with someone, that's the hardest thing. Like, of course, I know these like pitfalls that I've fallen into, but like, and I could see it. I could pretty much see it instantly when I work with a client, like what type of thoughts they're going through, what they're feeling, how they're fearing, and all this. And my first reaction was, how do I help this person? How do I save them? It's like, Will, where would you be if God stopped every challenge in your life, you know, back in the day? Where would you be? Would you be doing what you're doing? Would you be who you are? Probably not. So you have to be willing to be uncomfortable to go, you're learning at your own pace. You're learning at your own pace. And I'm comfortable with that. I don't have to give you the answer. Like, I was helping a little 5th grader with his math homework. It's like the easiest math problem. What's my first reaction?
So, what?
He's struggling with it. He's struggling with it. He's like,
give him the answer.
I'm like, it's 4.
Yeah.
Right? And I go, what am I doing? Like, that's not my journey.
Teaching him.
Let him learn. And I think that's like ultimately one of the things I learned in my coaching program was the willingness to be in that uncomfortable not knowing. Mm-hmm. You don't have to solve the answer for them. Let them find it on their own. Let them find it within themselves and their heart. And you like I wrote this when I finished my coaching program. I was like, what makes me different than all these people is I genuinely will never use somebody to come back for more sessions if they don't need it, and I don't need any credit for their growth. I don't need any credit. So that means when they take the reins, they take the reins. I don't need any credit for it. Mm-hmm. My greatest joys, like some of my greatest joys last year watching your games, was just getting hyped when I saw you make that choice.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's almost like I get like tears in my eyes when people I would get to work with, like they make that choice. I don't take any credit. It's just gratitude. It's like, I'm inspired.
Yeah.
He did it, I can do it too.
Mm-hmm.
He did it, I can do it too. And it's like, that is I watch some trainers where it's like, it's all about them, right? Oh, that's my guy. That's my player. It's like,
get out of there.
All right, man. Like, that's not your player. That's not you. And so it's like, I think ultimately that all comes with the willingness to get uncomfortable. And I think like who I am as a person when I'm working in those scenarios, like the gut instinct of a coach is to make things perfect and clean and neat.
Right.
I'm willing to have it be really mucky and uncomfortable and do sessions with the team where I'm like doing weird things that they might be like, what is this guy doing?
Yeah,
but I'm like, dude, I'm willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I'm willing for them not to like what I'm saying. I'm willing to and not always. It's not my gut instinct, but it's my higher self speaking through. Does that make sense? Or did I feel like I went off on a tangent when I heard he didn't watch The Matrix.
No, that was great. Yeah.
I want to know, how helpful do you think it is that you were a player? You've had such a great playing career, and how influential and how helpful has it been for you to have gone through that now that you're coaching, now that you're a trainer?
Yeah, it's huge because I think you understand. And when you understand, you don't judge.
Right.
Like, I've been there, man. I've been there. Like, if someone feels selfish, I've been there. If someone's missed shots and get down on themselves, I've been there. If someone's super confident when they score a lot of points, I've been there. So I think ultimately we're all a part of this collective consciousness. Like, if somebody's feeling this, the reason why I'm so able to forgive is because who am I to judge somebody that I have those qualities to? Mm-hmm. I have those qualities. So I think being a good player does not mean you're a good coach at all. I think they're two entirely separate entities. You can be a terrible basketball player and be a great basketball coach. And I think oftentimes people that transition from being a player to a coach, they cannot separate their own experience from that person's experience. Mm. So they actually get worse. They're not a good coach. Mm. And I think where I always, and I struggle with it too, but like you have your own biases and projections and things that you have to check at the door, because being a coach, you're a mirror. You're not an expert. You don't tell them always what to do. You're trying to help guide them to what they need to do.
Yeah.
And I think when you've played before, you go, hey, just make this read. Hey, just do this. So you have all the answers to the test, but they're not willing and ready to receive those.
Right.
So it's much better to be a coach that's able to be with that person where they're at and be with them, even if it's like the kid with the math problem.
Yeah.
Do I have to give him that answer right away? Do I have to solve that for him? Or can I just be with him as he learns it? Because, yeah, of course, I learned 2 + 2 before, but he hasn't yet. Let him figure it out. Let him use his fingers to count it. Right. Like, I don't need to be the one that's like, oh, I know 4, so you should know 4. Come on, kid.
I don't know that.
Right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that's sometimes hard. Like, I think that's what made me, I needed to grow in high school coaching, because I would throw PhD level stuff at them because I wanted to seem like I knew stuff. It's like, dude, these guys are in first grade math right now. Let them be in first grade math.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. I think just because we're kind of running out of time here, we could speak for hours.
I got a couple more.
We could go deep, but no, just to wrap it up, what's one thing you think you would, share with those who aspire to be the best at what they do? Mm-hmm. What's that message that you kind of want to give the younger cat that wants to make it to the next level? Like, what's your message?
I think there's so much great information out there. There's so much great access to tools.
Yeah.
Make sure you balance it 50-50 with your own self-introspection. You can take in and accumulate a lot of info, and it's super valuable. Like knees over toes guy, or these guys online that like they've changed how I train, and it's like I wouldn't have come up with that. But it's also, they say to thy own self be true. Like you got to go do your own inner work. You got to do your own inner work, and nobody can save you from that. It's like I was in a coffee shop the other day, and it was like, feel the rain on your skin. No one else can do it for you. That song, and it's like no one else can do it for you. Like they can tell you all these things, like you can experience joy. You should do this. You should do this. And it's like,
no one.
You're the only one that can allow it, experience it, tap into it. And I think the more you can realize you are the world that you're creating. So if you don't like the world that you're living in and the character you've chosen, you need to change yourself first, and everything else will follow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the inner work that you can't get that on scroll on Instagram. You could listen to the best person speak, and that's not gonna change your heart. And so it's up to you to be honest with yourself, really write down the thoughts that you're having and your emotions, and learn the tools to deal with it. I think that's like my main message. And then if you really want something, you have to be able to tame those gut reactions to discomfort. You have to. Yeah. There's no way around it. And so the greater peace you can have with that experience of there's going to be challenges, there's going to be fear, there's going to be anxiety, there's going to be injuries, there's all that. The quicker you can accept it, the faster you can grow. Right. Because then you're going to willingly choose it, and you're in control. I shouldn't say control. You're responsible rather than life's punching you and then you're reacting. It's like you've trained for this fight. You know that this is here, and you're in command of your mind, and you're conscious of it. You're the one choosing and motivating yourself through it. So I think that's the biggest thing, is like take the time to know yourself. Because when you know yourself, like you'd be surprised by who you're guided to, and who, like, the steps that you're taking will actually be a lot more clear than you might think.
Yeah.
So I'd say find someone that you trust to be a soundboard that can help you process that internal dialogue in those spaces, for sure.
Well, Will just dropped about 50,000 knowledge truth bombs.
Absolutely.
And if you aren't taking notes right now, you're crazy. But no, thank you so much for coming on the pod, and I hope you guys I know you guys will take something out of this.
No, thank you. I mean, like you said, just gems left and right. So much. So thank you very much for taking time.
Of course, man.
And good luck on your coaching career, with Team USA. And
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Will. Come on.
Will, deliver Will. Let's go.
Blessings. Thank you, guys.